The rain hammered against the windows of the 32nd floor of São Paulo's most coveted commercial building. Ethan Miller watched the city below, the lights blurred by the water streaming down the glass, creating hypnotic patterns he could no longer appreciate. He was 42, commanded a financial empire valued in billions of dollars, owned apartments on 3 continents, and carried a loneliness so profound that sometimes he felt like he was sinking into a bottomless pit. His routine was impeccable and empty. He woke up at 5 in the morning, worked out for an hour with his personal trainer, reviewed financial reports while sipping a green juice prepared by his nutritionist, and dove into endless meetings until 10 at night. On weekends, he visited his property in Aspen, a 20,000 square foot mansion surrounded by gardens he barely noticed. There, the silence was even more deafening. Ethan hadn't started out empty. There was a time when he dreamed, laughed, loved. But every step up the ladder of success demanded a sacrifice. First, it was time with friends. Then, the relationships that couldn't survive his obsession with work. Finally, something more subtle was lost, something he couldn't even name. It was as if, in conquering everything, he had lost the capacity to feel anything at all. The women who approached him wanted his money or his status. The executives who surrounded him wanted his power. No one wanted to know Ethan, the man behind the fortune. And perhaps because secretly, he suspected there was nothing left inside to be known. On that rainy Friday in April, Ethan left the office at 11 p.m. His chauffeur was waiting, but he dismissed the service with a wave of his hand. He wanted to drive alone to Aspen, to feel control over something, even if it was just a steering wheel. The road was slick, and the fog was beginning to form in the mountains. He turned on the radio but quickly turned it off. He preferred the silence. He always preferred the silence because the noise of the world reminded him how disconnected he was from it. He arrived at the mansion shortly after 1 in the morning. The property was lit up, as always, thanks to automatic timers that created the illusion of life where there was none. Ethan parked in the garage that could hold 12 vehicles, but where only 5 occupied space. He entered through the side door, taking off his rain-soaked suit jacket and tossing it over a Louis XV chair that had cost a fortune at a Paris auction. He didn't care about the piece. He didn't care about much of anything inside, despite every object having been carefully selected by renowned decorators. He climbed the Italian marble staircase toward his second-floor bedroom, but exhaustion and the 2 whiskeys he'd had before leaving the office blurred his perception. In the wide, dimly lit hallway, Ethan confused the doors. The staff wing was on the opposite side of the house, in a section he rarely visited, but that night, tired and distracted, he turned the knob of the wrong door. What he saw completely paralyzed him. In the small room, no more than 150 square feet, under the weak light of an old lamp, was his housekeeper. She was wearing one of his old shirts, the kind he ordered discarded but which somehow ended up redistributed around the house. She had her back to the door, holding a photograph with both hands, and her shoulders were shaking with silent sobs that seemed to come from the depths of her soul. Beside her, on the narrow bed, lay an open letter. Even from a distance, Ethan could read the red stamp at the top of the paper. Eviction notice. She hadn't noticed his presence yet. Ethan knew he should leave, close the door silently, and pretend it had never happened. That's what any sensible boss would do. But something kept him there, frozen, watching. Maybe it was the raw vulnerability of the scene. Maybe it was the shock of realizing that, for all these months, a real person had been living under his roof, and he had never truly seen her. He didn't even know her full name. He only knew she cleaned his house, prepared his meals when the cook had a day off, and silently disappeared as soon as he arrived, like a ghost serving another ghost. That's when his eyes scanned the small room and found something completely unexpected. On the opposite wall, taped up, was a series of architectural drawings. They weren't amateur sketches. They were sophisticated, detailed projects with professional shading and precise technical annotations. A residential building with an innovative design that integrated green spaces on every floor. A public square with complex geometry that created communal zones without losing the fluidity of the space. A community center with a wavy roof that looked almost alive. Ethan had invested in enough real estate projects to recognize talent when he saw it. And this was more than talent. It was genius. He must have made some noise because she turned abruptly. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face stained with tears. For an instant, both were in absolute silence, like two strangers trapped in a photograph. She was 28, he realized in that moment. Delicate features, dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, and an expression of pure panic as she realized her billionaire boss was standing in the doorway of her room, seeing her in that state of total despair. "Mr. Miller," she managed to say, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." She tried to hide the letter, wipe her tears, compose herself, all at once. Ethan raised his hand, a gesture intended to be reassuring, but which came out too stiff, too formal. "No," he said, his own voice sounding strange to himself. "I apologize. I entered the wrong room. I didn't intend to invade your privacy." But he didn't leave. He stood there looking at her, really looking, perhaps for the first time. And what he saw was someone her age, someone who should be in the prime of life, but who carried a weight on her shoulders that he recognized. It was different from his weight, made of financial responsibilities and corporate decisions. Her weight was more visceral, more human. It was the weight of someone supporting real people, of someone making decisions between eating and paying bills, of someone crying alone in a tiny room because there was no one to witness her pain. "Why are you crying?" he asked, and the question came out softer than he intended. Did something happen? She looked at him with a mixture of surprise and distrust, as if she couldn't believe he was actually asking. "It's nothing, sir. Just personal things. I'll handle it." Ethan could have accepted the answer. He should have accepted it. But his eyes returned to the drawings on the wall, and then to the eviction notice she was trying to hide under the pillow. "You're an architect," he said, and it wasn't a question. Her face closed off even more. I used to be. Not anymore." "Why?" The question came out before he could think better of it. "Why aren't you practicing your profession? These drawings, they are," he searched for the right word, "extraordinary. Any prestigious architecture firm would hire you in a heartbeat." She let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "You really think it's that simple? You think the world runs on talent alone?" Ethan felt the blow, although it wasn't directed specifically at him. Something in the way she said "you" carried decades of accumulated frustration. "Then explain it to me," he asked, stepping completely into the room now, forgetting all rules of decorum between boss and employee. "Explain to me why a talented architect is cleaning my house." She stared at him for a long moment, gauging whether he was sincere or if this was just another cruelty disguised as interest. Finally, as if a dam had broken, she began to speak. "My name is Maya Silva. I graduated from UCLA 4 years ago. I was top of my class. My thesis project won the National Sustainable Architecture Award. I had offers from 3 firms in Los Angeles. I was going to start at one of the biggest, with a decent salary and a chance to grow. And then my father had a stroke." Ethan remained silent, but something inside him began to stir, as if a rusty mechanism was finally starting to work again after years of being idle. "My father is a construction worker," Maya continued, the words coming out faster now, as if she needed to expel them before losing her courage. "He worked his whole life carrying weight, climbing scaffolding, building buildings he could never afford to live in. He's 56 and has the body of an 80-year-old. The stroke left him without movement. On his right side, he needed intensive physical therapy, expensive medications, constant care. My mother works as a cleaner, but her salary barely covers the rent. I have 2 younger siblings still in school. So I had to choose. Choose between what?" Ethan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Between my career and my family. Between my dreams and their survival." Maya looked directly at him, and there was so much pain in that gaze that Ethan felt it like a punch to the gut. Do you know what it's like to have to choose like that? To call prestigious architecture firms and say you can't accept the position because you need a job that pays weekly in cash so you can buy medicine for your father the next day? Do you know what it's like to see 4 years of college, sleepless nights studying, award-winning projects, all turn to dust because you were born poor? No, Ethan admitted softly. I don't. Exactly. Maya turned back to the wall, to her drawings. So, I took this job. You pay well, you pay on time, and you give me housing. I send almost all my salary home. I live in this room, wear clothes you were going to throw away, and I draw at night so I don't forget who I was, or who I could have been. Ethan felt a shame so profound it almost made him recoil. Shame for never having asked. Shame for having a 20-room mansion empty while this brilliant woman lived in a cubicle. Shame for how much money he wasted on things that meant nothing while she sent every penny to save her family. And the eviction notice, he asked, pointing to the paper she was hiding. Maya hesitated, then picked up the letter and handed it to him with a gesture of defeat. My parents received it today. $3,000 in back rent. The landlord gave them 15 days, or they'll be evicted. My mother called me crying. She didn't want to tell me, but my younger brother told me everything. I don't have that money. Not even close. Ethan looked at the number on the letter. $3,000. It was less than he spent on a business dinner. It was a ridiculous fraction of what he paid monthly just for the upkeep of this mansion he barely used. It was nothing, absolutely nothing to him, and it was everything to her. The difference between having a roof over their heads and sleeping on the street, between dignity and despair. I'll pay it, he said. Maya looked at Ethan as if he had spoken in another language. What? I'll pay your parents' debt, Ethan repeated with more firmness. $3,000. I'll transfer it tomorrow. No, Maya said immediately, recoiling as if the offer were a physical affront. Absolutely not. I don't accept charity. It's not charity, Ethan insisted, feeling a strange urgency to make her understand. He searched for the words, it's justice. How long have you worked for me? 8 months. 8 months cleaning my house, preparing my meals, taking care of everything while I barely noticed your existence. 8 months earning a decent salary, but not what you deserve for your real talent. $3,000 is, he paused. It's less than I should be paying for having an award-winning architect under my roof. I'm not your architect, Maya retorted, her voice tense. I'm your housekeeper, and I don't want your pity. Ethan felt the word pity like a slap, and deservedly so. He was doing everything wrong, he realized. He was trying to solve the problem as he would a financial transaction when this was clearly much more complex and delicate. I'm sorry, he said, taking a step back. You're right. I have no right to throw money at the problem as if that solves everything. But Maya, he used her first name for the first time, and noticed she flinched slightly at hearing it. Look at me. She raised her eyes, still defensive. I live in a 20,000 square foot mansion, completely alone, Ethan continued, and for the first time in years there was something close to genuine emotion in his voice. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I buy things I don't need, maintain properties I don't visit, pay for services I barely use. And at the same time, you, a brilliant person, are stuck here cleaning my floors because you were born on the wrong side of the inequality line. If that's not an obscene injustice, I don't know what is. So let me pay this debt. Not as charity, as a first step to correcting how broken this system is. Maya crossed her arms, still, resistant but clearly shaken. And then what? You pay today, and tomorrow my parents will have another emergency, another impossible bill, another crisis. And what do I do? Come cry in the room again, hoping you open the wrong door? No, Ethan said slowly. Tomorrow you go back to being an architect. Maya let out a humorless laugh. Oh, is it that easy? I just decide to go back to being an architect and presto, 4 years of lost career magically recover? Not magically, Ethan conceded, but possible. I can help. I know people, firms, I have contacts. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Maya interrupted, the frustration now evident. You think you're going to get me a spot at a firm because you know me? That's not merit, it's a favor. It's privilege. It's exactly the kind of thing that separates people like you from people like me. I don't want to enter through the back door. I want to be hired because I'm good, not because I'm a billionaire's protege. Ethan was silent, processing her words. She was right, obviously. And the fact that he hadn't even thought of that before showed how disconnected he was from the reality of most people. So, he said finally, what if we do it differently? How? I'll show your portfolio to an architect I know, Ethan proposed, without mentioning it's you. He'll evaluate the work professionally, without knowing who did it. If he likes it and offers a position, then I'll reveal that it's you. But you only accept if you go through a normal selection process, without favoritism. If you get the job, it will be because you deserve it. I'm just opening the door. You have to walk through it. Maya looked at him with an expression Ethan couldn't decipher. It was a mixture of hope, fear, distrust, and something deeper. What if I don't pass? Then you don't pass, Ethan said with brutal honesty. But at least you had the chance. Something many people with your talent never get simply because they don't know the right people. Maya, I can't change the whole system. But I can try to balance the scales even if it's just a little bit. Maya walked to the small window in her room which overlooked the dark gardens outside. She stood there for a long moment, and Ethan respected her silence. Finally, she turned around. All right, she said softly. I accept, but with conditions. Name them. First, I pay back the $3,000, Maya established. Little by little, deducted from my salary, no matter how long it takes. Second, if I get the position at the architecture firm I leave here, I can't be your housekeeper and an architect at the same time. And third, she looked him directly in the eye. After I leave here, we don't see each other again. Clean break. No dinners, no friendship, no contact. I can't owe anyone anything, not even gratitude. Ethan felt a strange pang in his chest at the third condition, but he nodded. Agreed. He extended his hand, formal and businesslike. We have a deal. Maya looked at the extended hand, then shook it. Her palm was calloused from domestic work, but the grip was firm. We do. Ethan left her room at 2 a.m, but he couldn't sleep. He stayed in the mansion's library, surrounded by expensive books he had never read, thinking about the conversation he had just had. For the first time in years, something inside him seemed to have awakened. It wasn't happiness, it wasn't satisfaction, but it was something. It was a sense of purpose, however small. The next day, Saturday, Ethan made the transfer to Maya's family before even having coffee. Then, he called Charles Harrison, one of the most renowned architects in the country, with whom he had done business in the past. Charles, I need you to evaluate a portfolio for me, Ethan said without preamble. I'm thinking of investing in a young talent, and I want your professional opinion. Charles agreed, always interested when Ethan mentioned investments. Ethan asked Maya for her digital portfolio that afternoon, and she handed it over with trembling hands and hopeful eyes she tried to hide. Don't let me down, she whispered, and Ethan wasn't sure if she was talking to him or to fate. 2 days later, Charles called. Ethan, where did you get this portfolio? His voice was animated, almost excited. These projects are extraordinary. The use of space, the sustainable integration, the social sensitivity. It's exactly the kind of thing we're looking for at the firm. Who is this architect? It's an architect, Ethan corrected, and she's available. Send her to the office tomorrow, Charles requested. I want to meet her personally. Ethan relayed the news to Maya that night. She was in the kitchen preparing his dinner, and when she heard the words, she almost dropped the pan she was holding. He wants to meet me? Tomorrow? Tomorrow at 10 a.m., Ethan confirmed. Address on 5th Avenue. Bring your complete portfolio and be prepared to present your projects. Maya looked at him, and for the first time since they met, she smiled. It wasn't a huge or effusive smile, but it was genuine. Thank you, she said simply. Ethan nodded as if it were nothing, but something inside him responded to that smile in a way he didn't expect. You're welcome. Now go get ready. Tomorrow is an important day." Maya rushed out to her room, and Ethan was left alone in the enormous kitchen. He noticed she had started making paella, a complex Spanish dish he had casually mentioned weeks ago as something he liked. She remembered. This woman he had treated as invisible for 8 months paid attention to details about him that he didn't even notice himself. That night, Ethan made an impulsive decision. He decided to make dinner himself. To celebrate Maya's achievement, he decided to make paella, since she had started it. How hard could it be? He had seen chefs doing it on television countless times. He had all the ingredients. He had pots and pans worth tens of thousands of dollars. He had the confidence of someone who had never failed at anything he truly attempted. An hour later, the kitchen looked like a war zone. There was rice everywhere. The seafood was rubbery. The saffron had stained the marble countertop. The smoke from the burnt rice activated the fire alarm, making the sirens blare deafeningly through the mansion. Ethan was in the middle of the chaos, holding a wooden spoon like a useless weapon, when Maya came running in. She stopped at the kitchen door, looked at the scene of destruction, looked at Ethan with his dress shirt stained with tomato sauce and an expression of total despair, and did something he had never heard her do. She laughed. It wasn't a polite giggle. It was a loud, genuine burst of laughter, coming from deep in her chest, the kind of laugh that frees something long trapped. "Mr. Miller," she managed to say between laughs, "what are you trying to do?" "Paella," Ethan admitted miserably. "I was trying to make paella." Maya looked at the ruined pan and laughed even harder. Then, wiping tears of laughter, she walked up to him. "Get out of the way," she ordered, still smiling. "Let a professional handle this." "You don't have to," Ethan began, but she gently pushed him aside. "I know I don't have to, but I want to." "Now sit there," she pointed to a stool, "and watch how a real paella is made." Ethan sat and watched as Maya took control of the kitchen with military efficiency. She salvaged what she could of the ingredients, discarded what was lost, and started everything over from scratch. And as she cooked, she talked, explaining each step, each ingredient, each technique. Ethan realized she was teaching him not just about paella, but about patience, about process, about how some things cannot be bought or rushed. They must be built with care. 40 minutes later, there was a perfect paella on the kitchen table. Maya served 2 plates and sat beside him, not across from him, as would be appropriate between boss and employee, but beside him as equals. They ate in silence for a few minutes, and it was the most comfortable silence Ethan had experienced in years. Maya stopped eating and looked at Ethan. "Can I ask you a question?" Ethan noticed she had dropped the "sir," and that meant something, though he didn't know exactly what. "You can. Why do you live like this?" Maya vaguely gestured to the mansion around them. "Alone, in this huge place. You have everything money can buy, but you seem..." She hesitated. "You seem so empty." Ethan put down his fork, the question catching him off guard with its brutal honesty. "Because I don't know how to live any other way," he admitted after a long silence. "I spent so much time building my empire that I forgot how to build anything else. Relationships, friendships, real connections, all of that requires time and vulnerability, and I sacrificed both on the altar of success. Do you regret it?" "Every day," Ethan said, and it was the most honest thing he had said in years. "But I don't know how to go back." "How do you reconnect with the world when you've spent decades isolating yourself from it?" Maya was thoughtful, stirring her food with her fork. "You know what's funny? My parents are poor. They live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a working-class neighborhood in East LA. My dad spends the day watching TV because he can't work anymore. My mom comes home with her back aching from scrubbing floors. And yet, every Sunday when I managed to visit before coming to work here, the house was full of life. Neighbors walking in without knocking to grab coffee. My brother playing guitar in the living room. My mom singing while she cooked. They had nothing, but they had everything. Connection, community, love, things you can't buy. And now?" Ethan asked, softly. Now I send money and they pretend everything is fine so I don't worry. I call on Sundays and hear my mom lie, saying my dad is getting better when I know he's not. I lost architecture and I lost them too, in a way. I'm stuck between two worlds, belonging to neither. Maya looked at him. I think I understand your loneliness better than you imagine. Ethan felt a connection so strong in that moment that it almost scared him. Here were two strangers, separated by billions of dollars and worlds of experience, but united by the same fundamental loneliness. Thank you, he said, for the honesty. Thank you for the opportunity, Maya replied. Tomorrow could change everything for me. And it did. Maya arrived at Charles Harrison's office at 10 a.m., sharp, wearing the only suit she owned, bought at a thrift store but impeccably pressed. Charles received her personally, intrigued to meet the mind behind those extraordinary projects. The meeting that was supposed to last 30 minutes stretched to 3 hours. Maya presented not only her academic portfolio, but new ideas she had developed during the months of frustration, concepts of social architecture that integrated low-income, communities with sustainable and accessible design. Charles was impressed not only with the technical talent, but with Maya's evident passion. She didn't see architecture as mere construction of buildings, but as a tool for social justice, a way to restore dignity to people through the space they inhabited. It was exactly the vision his firm, specializing in social impact projects, was looking for. At the end of the meeting, Charles made an offer: a 6-month paid internship, working directly with the team on community projects. The salary was 3 times what she earned as a housekeeper. If she excelled, there would be a permanent position waiting. It was everything Maya had dreamed of, and more. She left the office in a state of shock, her legs shaky, her heart racing. She needed to tell someone, to share that explosive joy that threatened to make her scream in the middle of Fifth Avenue. She grabbed her cell phone and, without thinking much, called Ethan. "I got it," she said as soon as he answered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Ethan, I got it. He offered me an internship, 6 months, decent salary, possibility of permanent employment. I'm going back to being an architect." Ethan was in a meeting with Japanese investors when the phone rang. Normally he would never answer, but he saw her name on the screen and simply stood up, excused himself, and left the conference room, leaving 6 perplexed men in suits. "Maya," he said, and there was something in his voice that he himself didn't recognize. It was joy, genuine, pure, without calculation or ulterior motive. "That's incredible. I'm so happy for you." They talked for 15 minutes, she recounting every detail of the meeting. He listening with total attention, asking questions, laughing with her, genuinely celebrating her success. When he hung up, Ethan realized he was smiling, a true smile that used long-forgotten facial muscles. He returned to the conference room, and the Japanese investors, known for their rigid formality, looked at him as if they had seen a ghost. The Ethan Miller who had left 5 minutes ago had returned completely transformed. Maya started the internship the following Monday. As agreed, she left the Aspen mansion, rented a small room in a boarding house in Los Angeles, closer to the office. Ethan helped her move, insisting on paying the first month's rent as a bonus for her service time. Maya accepted because she needed it, but made it clear that this would be the last financial help she would accept from him. When she left with her few suitcases, Ethan was alone in the mansion again. But this time the loneliness was different. Before it was just empty. Now it hurt. He walked through the corridors and saw the places where she used to be. The kitchen where she had prepared that perfect paella. The garden where he had sometimes seen her watering flowers he didn't even know existed. And the small room where everything had begun, now empty except for the drawings still taped to the wall, which she had left behind. Ethan found himself thinking about her constantly, how the internship was going, if she was adapting well, if she was happy. He resisted the urge to call, remembering the 3rd condition she had set: clean break, no contact. But 3 weeks later, when he returned to Los Angeles for a business meeting, Ethan did something completely out of character. He drove past the building where Charles's office was located, hoping perhaps to catch a glimpse of her. He didn't see Maya, but he saw something that made him stop the car. In the office window, there was a project displayed, an architectural model of a playground in a low-income neighborhood in South LA. The design was clearly hers. It had her signature in every detail, the way it integrated nature and functionality, how it created spaces that respected and celebrated the community instead of trying to change it. Below the model, a plaque, Pilot Project Architect Maya Silva. Ethan felt a pride so intense it almost knocked him over. She was doing it, really doing it, and he had helped, even minimally, to make it possible. For the first time in his life, his money and privilege had served for something beyond accumulating more money and privilege. At the office, Maya was having the most challenging and rewarding month of her life. Charles had thrown her into the deep end right away, giving her the playground project with a ridiculously low budget and a tight deadline. It was a test, she knew, a trial by fire to see if she really had what it took. Maya gave herself body and soul. She visited the neighborhood personally, talked to residents, to the mothers, who took their children to play in the streets because there was no safe space. She involved the community in the design process, asking the children's opinions about what they wanted, the parents about what they needed. She used recycled materials where possible, negotiated with suppliers, worked with local volunteers. She transformed limitations into creative opportunities. The result was a park that didn't look designed for the community, but by the community. It had vibrant colors chosen by the children, shaded areas requested by the grandparents who cared for their grandchildren, a small amphitheater the community could use for events. It was functional, beautiful, and deeply respectful of the local identity. When Charles saw the finished project, he was silent for a long moment. Then he just said, "You're not just a talented architect, Maya. You are exactly the kind of professional this country needs." The project was immediately approved, and Maya was assigned as the lead architect for the execution. 4 months later, the park was ready for inauguration. It was a sunny Saturday in August, and the entire community gathered for the celebration. There was music, food, children running excitedly to explore every corner of the new space. Maya was at the center of everything, surrounded by residents who hugged her, thanked her, cried with joy. She wore a simple yellow dress, and her face was illuminated by a smile so radiant it seemed to glow. Ethan was there. He had canceled 3 important meetings in New York to be present, although he hadn't told Maya. He stood at the back of the crowd, just watching her interact with the children, crouching down to their level, listening carefully to their opinions about the park, watching her hug an elderly woman who was crying with gratitude, watching her laugh when a group of boys pulled her to play soccer on the small court she had designed. And it was in that moment, seeing Maya absolutely alive, doing exactly what she was born to do, that Ethan understood something fundamental. He was completely, irrevocably in love with her. The revelation hit him with the force of lightning. It wasn't just admiration for her talent or respect for her character. It was love, the deep, terrifying kind that changes a person completely. Ethan stood there in the middle of the celebration, his heart pounding and the absolute certainty that his life would never be the same. Maya saw him. Their eyes met across the crowd, and she seemed genuinely surprised but happy. She walked toward him, her yellow dress swaying, her face still radiant. "You came," she said, and there was something vulnerable in the way she spoke, as if she hadn't been sure he would come. "Of course I came," Ethan replied, struggling to keep his voice normal despite the whirlwind of emotions. "I wouldn't miss this for the world." "The park is incredible, Maya. You are incredible." She blushed slightly, looking away. It was a team effort. The community did most of it. "Don't be modest," Ethan insisted. "This is you, your vision, your passion, your ability to truly see people and create something that respects who they are. It's exactly what you said that night, remember? Architecture is a way to restore dignity. You are doing it." Maya looked at him with an expression he couldn't fully read. There was gratitude there, but also something deeper. You know none of this would have happened without you, right? I would still be cleaning floors if you hadn't opened that wrong door." "I opened the door," Ethan said softly. "But you walked through it. No one can do that for you. The talent is yours. The achievement is yours. He searched for the words. "I was just lucky enough to witness it." Before Maya could respond, a group of children pulled her back to the celebration. She looked at Ethan with an apologetic smile, and he nodded for her to go. He stayed there for another hour, just watching, until he finally forced himself to leave before doing something stupid, like confessing his feelings in the middle of a park inauguration. That night, Ethan was at a small, anonymous restaurant in downtown Los Angeles, the kind of place he would never normally frequent. He had come because he needed to think, and he thought better when he was surrounded by real people living real lives, instead of isolated in his empty mansion. He was distractedly stirring a plate of chili when Maya walked in. She didn't see him initially. She was with two friends, colleagues from the architecture firm, laughing at something one of them had said. She was wearing jeans and a simple blouse, her hair down, completely different from the shy housekeeper he had met months ago. She was, Ethan realized with a pang in his chest, absolutely beautiful. Not in a conventional or ostentatious way, but in an authentic way that made everyone else in the restaurant seem like blurred shadows. When she finally saw him, Maya seemed genuinely delighted. She excused herself from her friends and walked over to his table. "This is the second time today we've run into each other by chance," she said with a smile. "Is the universe trying to tell us something?" Ethan's heart raced. "Maybe it is. Would you like to join me?" Maya hesitated for just a second before accepting. She explained to her friends that she had run into an acquaintance and would join them later. She sat across from Ethan, and for a moment they just looked at each other. A comfortable but charged silence between them. "How are you?" Ethan asked finally. "I mean, really, not the polite version you give everyone." Maya picked up a napkin and began folding it distractedly. "I'm exhausted," she admitted. "Happy, but exhausted. The park project was intense. Now Charles has already put me on another one, a community school in another tough neighborhood. Bigger budget, more responsibility, more pressure. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to collapse." "But you won't," Ethan said with conviction, "because you are stronger than you think." "Or more stubborn," Maya laughed. "My mom always says I inherited my dad's stubbornness. When I decide to do something, I see it through, even if it kills me." "How is your father?" Ethan asked, genuinely curious. Maya's face closed slightly. "Stable. He hasn't improved much, but he hasn't gotten worse. Physical therapy helps. He can move a little better now. He hasn't gone back to work, obviously, but at least he's not totally dependent." Maya paused. "Thank you for paying that debt, by the way. My parents weren't evicted. My mother lit a candle for you at church." Ethan felt a wave of unexpected emotion. "You don't need to thank me. I already told you it wasn't charity." "I know. But still," Maya looked at him with something that could be tenderness. "You changed my life, Ethan. In a way I'll never be able to fully repay." "You already paid me back," Ethan said before he could stop himself. "You taught me how to see people again, how to care about something besides financial reports and corporate acquisitions. You reminded me there's a real world out there, full of real people with real problems and real dreams. I was dead inside, Maya. And you," he paused, realizing he was saying too much but unable to stop. "You brought me back to life." Maya went very still, her eyes locked on him. "Ethan," she started, her voice hesitant. "Don't say that, please." "Why?" "Because it makes everything messy." Maya looked away. "When I was your housekeeper, everything was simple. There was a clear line between us. Now you're here saying these things, and I don't know what to do with it." "What do you want to do?" Ethan asked softly. Maya was silent for so long that he thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she said, "I want us to be friends. Real friends. No complications, no this." She vaguely gestured between them. You're too important to me to risk messing everything up. Ethan felt his heart sink, but he forced a smile. Friends then, if that's what you want. It's what needs to happen, Maya gently corrected. She stood up. I need to get back to my friends. They're probably wondering what's going on. Of course, Ethan said, also rising. It was good seeing you, Maya. It was good seeing you too. Maya hesitated, then impulsively leaned in and kissed his cheek. Take care, Ethan, and thank you for everything. She left, leaving a trail of cheap floral perfume and the phantom warmth of her lips on his skin. Ethan sat back down, staring at the chili that had grown cold on his plate, and realized he had made a mistake. He showed his feelings too soon. He scared her off. Now he would have to retreat, give her space, and just be the friend she needed him to be, even if it killed him inside. The following months were a delicious torture. Ethan and Maya established a careful, delicate friendship. They occasionally had dinner together, always in public places. They exchanged texts about trivial things. He asked about her projects. She asked about his business. They kept everything light, superficial, safe. But there was an ever-present tension, an electric current that passed between them every time their eyes met, every time their fingers accidentally brushed while reaching for the salt. Maya was thriving professionally. The community school project was an even bigger success than the park. Her reputation grew in social architecture circles. She started getting invited to give lectures, consult, and collaborate. At 29, she was finally living the life she had always dreamed of. Ethan changed too. He started getting involved in real philanthropy, not just writing checks to charities, but actually participating. He visited projects, met beneficiaries, understood where the money was going. He cut back his workload, delegated more responsibilities, and stopped working 7 days a week. He started living, for the first time in decades. But Maya was always there, at the core of every decision. Every change was her. The desire to be worthy of her. To be the kind of man a woman like her could love without reservation. He knew he was pathetic, a 42-year-old man in love like a teenager, but he couldn't help it. And he suspected, from small signs he tried not to overanalyze, that maybe she felt something too, but was fighting her own feelings. 6 months after the park inauguration, Maya called Ethan on a Tuesday night. He answered on the first ring, as he always did when her name popped up. "Hey," she said, and there was something different in her voice. "Are you free right now? I need to talk to you." "Of course," Ethan said immediately, his heart racing with concern. "Is everything okay? I'm at the coffee shop near your office, the one you like. Can you come?" "I'm on my way." Ethan arrived 15 minutes later, having practically run from the apartment in the West Village where he now lived, having sold the mountain estate because he couldn't stand the loneliness there anymore. He found Maya sitting in a corner, 2 cups of coffee already on the table, her face pale and her eyes red, as if she had recently cried. "What happened?" Ethan sat down next to her, resisting the urge to pull her into his arms. "My dad," Maya said, her voice breaking. "He had another stroke this morning, worse than the first one. He's in the hospital now, in the ICU. Ethan felt the world stop. "I am so sorry, Maya, so deeply sorry. How is he? What did the doctors say?" Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to compose herself. "He's going to survive, but..." She took a deep, trembling breath. "His left side is completely paralyzed now. He's going to need intensive care, daily physical therapy, neurological follow-ups, expensive medication. The doctors mentioned experimental treatments that could help, but insurance won't cover it. It's all private pay. We're talking $20,000, $30,000 a month. My mom is frantic." "And you?" Ethan asked softly. Maya paused, her eyes filling with tears again. "I'm scared, Ethan. Scared of losing him. Scared of not being able to help. My salary is good now, but it's not enough for this. I thought about taking out a loan, but the interest rates are predatory. I thought about selling the car I just bought, but Even that wouldn't be enough. And the worst part is, she let out a sob, the worst part is that I was finally making it. I was finally building my career. And now I'm going to have to choose again. Choose? Between my dad and my future, Maya explained, her voice heavy with anguish. Charles offered me a permanent position at the firm. Great salary, benefits, career track. But it's full-time, sometimes more. I won't be able to take care of my dad and keep the job. I'll have to turn down the position, look for something that gives me more flexibility, even if it pays less. It'll be college all over again, sacrificing my dreams because I have no choice. Ethan felt a fury rise within him. Not fury against Maya or her family, but against a system so cruelly unequal that it forced brilliant people to choose between love and ambition, between caring for those they loved and building the future they deserved. While he had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, people like Maya had to make impossible choices. No, he said firmly. You are not. Giving up your career. Not again. Ethan, don't start, Maya warned. I've already accepted too much help from you. I can't keep depending on your generosity. It's not generosity, Ethan interrupted. He stopped, realizing what he was about to say would change everything between them, but unable to hold back because seeing her suffer like this was unbearable. Marry me, Maya. She stared at him as if he had spoken in Mandarin. What? Marry me, Ethan repeated, now committed to the idea. Look, I know it sounds crazy. I know it's sudden. But think about it. If we get married legally, I can cover all your dad's medical expenses. I can hire the best specialists, pay for the experimental treatments, ensure he has the care he needs for as long as he needs it. I can hire full-time nurses to stay with him so your mother doesn't have to carry everything alone. You won't have to choose between your career and your family, because I will take care of your family too. Maya shook her head, pulling back. No. Ethan, you can't just propose marriage like it's a business transaction. It's not a transaction, Ethan insisted, taking her hands in his. Maya, listen to me. I love you. I've been in love with you for months. I tried to hide it. I tried to respect your boundaries, but it's the truth. I love you. I was going to ask you anyway. I was just waiting for the right moment. Your father's situation isn't creating my feelings. It's just accelerating what was already inevitable. You can't love me, Maya protested, but her voice was weak, uncertain. You barely know the real me. We were boss and employee, then distant friends. That's not enough to get married. I know. You better than I've known anyone else in my life, Ethan said intensely. I know your passion for architecture, your loyalty to your family, your absurd strength in the face of obstacles that would crush anyone else. I know how you worry about people, how you put others before yourself, how you turn everything you touch into something more beautiful. I know the sound of your laugh when you genuinely find something funny. I know how you wrinkle your nose when you're concentrating. I know you take your coffee with 2 spoons of sugar but pretend to drink it black when you're with people you want to impress. Maya, he squeezed her hands. I know you. Maya was crying now, tears streaming freely down her face. This is insane, she whispered. We can't get married just because my dad is sick. We're not getting married just because your dad is sick, Ethan corrected. We're getting married because I love you, and because if I have these resources, this obscene privilege, the least I can do is use them to help the person who matters most to me. Your family will be my family, Maya. Your problems will be my problems. Not because I pity you, but because I choose you. I choose you every day. I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you. What if you change your mind? Maya asked, vulnerable. What if you wake up 6 months from now and realize you made a mistake? That I'm not good enough for your world? Maya, you are too good for my world, Ethan said with absolute conviction. You have more integrity, more real value than all the social elite I know combined. They will judge you because you came from a different world, but who cares? I don't care about their opinion. I only care about yours. Maya was silent for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, she said, I have conditions. If we do this, There have to be conditions. Anything. First, it's not a marriage of convenience, Maya stipulated. If we get married, it's real. A real commitment, not just an arrangement on paper. Second, I maintain my financial independence. My salary is mine. I don't want to become dependent on you. Third, if it doesn't work out, if we realize we made a mistake, we promise to be honest with each other. No, staying together out of obligation. And fourth, she stared him down, you have to promise me you will never use this against me. You will never throw it in my face that you helped me, that you saved my family. I need to know you're doing this because you want to, not to keep me eternally indebted. I promise all of that, Ethan said without hesitation. And I'll add a fifth condition. You have to promise me you will accept my help without guilt, that you will let me take care of you the same way you take care of everyone around you, that you will let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Maya let out a laugh that was half a sob. You really want to do this? Marry me? A poor girl from the South Side who's going to bring all her family baggage along? I want to spend the rest of my life doing this, Ethan confirmed. If you let me. Maya looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching for any sign of doubt or ulterior motives. She found none. All right, she finally said. Let's do it. Let's get married. Ethan felt a wave of joy so intense he thought he might levitate. He pulled Maya into a hug, and for the first time she let him. They stayed there in the nearly empty coffee shop, embracing while she cried on his shoulder, releasing months of accumulated tension. He kissed her hair, her eyes, her forehead, each kiss a silent promise. In the following days, Ethan proved he wasn't kidding. He hired the best neurologists in the country to evaluate Maya's father. He arranged a transfer to a top-tier private hospital. He hired a nursing team for full-time care. He paid for the experimental treatments the doctors mentioned. And he did it all discreetly, without fanfare, without expecting recognition. When Maya took him to meet her family officially, not as a boss but as a fiancé, Ethan was more nervous than he had been in any billion-dollar negotiation. The house where Maya's parents lived was a small, cramped apartment on the south side, in a 4-story walk-up building. It had 2 tiny bedrooms, a living room that doubled as a kitchen, and windows that faced another window 10 feet away. But it was impeccably clean and full of life. Photographs on the walls, plants on the balcony, the smell of home cooking. Maya's mother, Connie, was a small, strong woman with calloused hands and eyes that saw right through people. She looked at Ethan with initial suspicion, clearly wondering what a billionaire wanted with her daughter. But when she saw how he looked at Maya, how he treated her with obvious respect and tenderness, her expression softened. "Sit down here, young man," she ordered, pointing to the worn couch. "I'm getting coffee, and don't give me any fancy talk about not drinking it. In my house, guests drink coffee." Ethan obeyed, accepting the strong, sweet coffee she served in mismatched mugs. Maya's father was in a hospital bed set up in the living room, still recovering. He couldn't speak clearly, but his eyes were alert. He studied Ethan for a long time, then looked at Maya. She nodded, answering an unverbalized question. Her father sighed, then extended his good hand. Ethan shook it, feeling the remaining strength in that grip. Maya's siblings, Luke, 17, and Julia, 15, were less subtle. They looked at Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, clearly wondering if this rich man was real, or too good to be true. It was Julia who broke the ice, asking bluntly, "Do you really love my sister, or are you doing this out of pity?" "Julia," Maya started, scandalized, but Ethan raised his hand. "No, let her ask. It's a fair question." He looked directly at the girl. "I love your sister more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And yes, I want to help your family, but not out of pity. I do it because when you truly love someone, their family becomes your family too. Their problems become your problems. And because I have resources that can help, it would be wrong not to use them. But mostly, I do it because Maya deserves to have someone on her side after spending so much time taking care of everyone else alone." Julia studied him for a moment, then nodded, apparently satisfied. "All right then. But if you hurt her, I'll kill you. I'm 15 and I have nothing to lose." "Julia!" Connie exclaimed, but Ethan laughed, a genuine laugh. "I believe you, and I promise I won't hurt her." Lunch was simple but delicious. Rice and beans, steak with onions, and salad. Maya helped her mother in the kitchen while Ethan stayed in the living room with her father and siblings. Luke eventually brought up football, and Ethan, who had never cared much for sports, listened intently as the boy spoke passionately about the local team. It was strange, surreal even, to be sitting in that small room, so different from anywhere he usually frequented, but it was also the most real thing he had experienced in years. As they were leaving, Connie pulled Ethan aside. "Listen here, young man," she said quietly, firmly. "I don't know much about your world of money and business, but I know about people, and I see that you really like my daughter. I only ask one thing of you. Don't let these rich people change her. Maya is special because she never forgot where she came from, because she uses her talent to help people like us. Don't let her turn into one of those empty socialites we see on TV." "Never," Ethan promised solemnly. "I love her exactly as she is. If anything, I'm the one trying to learn to be more like her." Connie studied him for another moment, then nodded. "Then you have my blessing. Take good care of my girl. I will take care of her every day of my life." Maya and Ethan married 3 months later, not in a luxurious church or five-star hotel, but in the courtyard of the building where she grew up. It was Connie who insisted. "This is where Maya learned to walk, learned to play, learned to dream. This is where she has to get married." The courtyard was decorated simply, with flowers and string lights hung up. There were plastic chairs borrowed from neighbors, a long table with food made by the entire community, and music playing from a boombox. The guests were a strange mix of two worlds: renowned architects from Maya's firm next to factory workers who were friends of her father, business partners of Ethan sharing space with neighbors from the South Side. It was chaotic and loud and absolutely perfect. Maya wore a simple white dress without frills, but she was so radiant that Ethan could barely breathe when he saw her walking toward him. She cried during the vows. So did he. When the justice of the peace declared them husband and wife, the entire community erupted in applause and shouts of joy. Children ran to hug Maya. Neighbors embraced Ethan as if he were one of them. It was the happiest day either of them had ever lived. In the middle of the party, Ethan asked for attention. He had an announcement to make. With Maya by his side, holding his hand, he revealed the creation of the Maya Silva Foundation, dedicated to supporting young talent from underserved communities. $20 million in initial funding, with a commitment to add more every year. Full scholarships, professional mentorship, connections to the job market, everything Maya hadn't had, everything that had made her journey so much harder than it needed to be. The foundation would provide for others. Maya knew nothing about it. Ethan had planned everything in secret. She looked at him with tears streaming down her face, unable to form words. The entire community fell into shocked silence, then exploded in celebration again. Connie cried on her husband's shoulder. Luke and Julia hugged their sister. It was more than a wedding. It was the union of two worlds that should never have met, but somehow fit together perfectly. The following years were the happiest of both their lives. They moved to a smaller, cozier house in the Pinheiros neighborhood of São Paulo. It wasn't a mansion, but it had enough space and was full of life. Ethan drastically reduced his workload, delegating most of the company's day-to-day operations to trusted executives. He started working only 4 days a week, dedicating the rest of his time to the foundation and being present in real life. Maya continued to thrive as an architect. She became one of the most respected professionals in social architecture in the country. Her projects won international awards. She gave lectures at universities, inspiring young architects to use their skills to make a social impact. And best of all, she managed to do all this without sacrificing her family this time. Maya's father improved significantly with the treatments. He never fully recovered movement on his left side, but he could walk with the aid of a cane, speak clearly, and even return to doing small consulting jobs for construction companies. Connie was finally able to cut back her work hours, spending more time with her children. Luke entered engineering school with a full scholarship from the foundation. Julia discovered a talent for design and was also being supported, but not everything was easy. Ethan's social world, as Maya had predicted, did not accept her easily. There were dinners where other women looked at her with thinly veiled disdain, charity events where they treated her like an intruder. Malicious comments about her being a gold digger circulated through elite circles. Maya tried not to care, but Ethan saw how much they hurt her. At one particularly awful gala, where 3 women made cruel comments about Maya's origins loud enough for her to hear, Ethan made a decision. In the middle of the event, he grabbed the microphone and gave an impromptu speech. He spoke about privilege and merit, about how the elite congratulated themselves for achievements that were merely consequences of being born into the right family, while people like Maya achieved the extraordinary despite every obstacle society placed in their way. He spoke about real values versus superficial values, and he concluded by saying that if anyone there had a problem with his wife, they would have to deal with him directly, because she had more class and character than the entire room combined. The silence was deafening. Then, surprisingly, one of the most influential women in São Paulo society started applauding. Others joined in. Not everyone, some left indignant, but enough to make a difference. Maya looked at Ethan with a mixture of mortification and deep love. Then, she whispered in his ear, "You are completely crazy. I love you so much." The foundation grew beyond expectations. In the first year, it supported 50 young people from underserved communities. In the second, 200. In the third, it began expanding to other cities. Maya was deeply involved, not just lending her name, but actively working with the beneficiaries, mentoring, advising, connecting. Seeing young talents gain opportunities that she had almost lost was the most gratifying thing she had ever done. Ethan had changed completely. The emotionally empty man who had lived alone in a cavernous mansion was unrecognizable. He laughed now, truly laughed. He had real friends, not just business contacts. He visited Maya's family every Sunday, played dominoes with the neighbors, and helped Luke with his math homework. He discovered he was good with kids and started casually mentioning maybe having children of their own someday. One evening, 5 years after their wedding, they were sitting on their porch, watching the sunset over São Paulo. Maya was leaning against him, her head on his shoulder, fingers intertwined. "You know you saved me, right?" Ethan said suddenly. Maya lifted her head to look at him. "Me? You saved me. You gave me my career back, took care of my family, changed my entire life." "No, Maya," Ethan insisted. "You saved me from an empty life, from the man I was becoming, rich but dead inside. That night when I walked into your room by mistake, you reminded me that there are things more important than money and power. You taught me how to really see people, how to care, how to live. I had everything and I had nothing. Now I have you. I have purpose. I have a real life. You are literally the best thing that ever happened to me." Maya felt tears in her eyes. "Funny. I was going to say the same thing about you. Remember when you asked if I was okay? In that room, that night? It was the first time in months that someone actually saw me as a person. Not as a housekeeper, not as a poverty statistic, but as a human. You treated me with dignity when I was at my lowest point. You gave me back my dreams when I had already given up on them. How could I not fall in love with you?" Ethan pulled her into a long, deep kiss. When they separated, he said, "Then I guess we saved each other." "I think so," Maya agreed. "Two castaways who found each other in the middle of the ocean and built an island together. I like that metaphor." Ethan smiled. "Although technically, I was the billionaire shipwreck with a sinking luxury yacht, and you were the architect building survival rafts out of scrap wood." Maya laughed. "Always have to turn everything into a class metaphor, don't you?" "It's part of my charm," Ethan joked. "That's why you love me." "No," Maya said, becoming serious again. "I love you because you chose to change. Because when you had the chance to keep living in your bubble of privilege, you chose to step out of it. Because you use your power to lift others up instead of just lifting yourself. Because you treat me as an equal, not as a charity project. And because," she gently touched his face, "you make me happy. Every day in big and small ways. You make me happy. That's my only mission in life now, Ethan admitted, to make you happy, and maybe, in the process, make this world a little less unfair. I think we're succeeding, Maya said, looking at the city below, where somewhere another young talent was fighting impossible odds, just as she had fought. And we'll keep succeeding. They sat there until night fell completely, two worlds that should never have met but became one, proving that true love knows no class boundaries, that the recognition of human worth can happen in the most improbable places, and that sometimes, just sometimes, opening the wrong door can lead you exactly where you need to be. It wasn't a fairy tale about a prince saving a damsel. It was the story of two imperfect people who saved each other, building a love based on respect, justice, and the profound recognition of each other's value. All because Ethan, on a rainy night, opened the wrong door and finally saw what had been invisible to him all along. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Ethan and Maya touched your hearts the same way it touched ours when writing it. This narrative reminds us that true love is born from the recognition of human dignity, that privilege should be used to lift others, and that it is never too late to change and become a better person. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories we bring you daily. Leave a like if Maya and Ethan won you over, and tell us in the comments which moment touched your heart the most. Your interaction means everything to us and helps us continue creating content that truly matters. Until the next story, and remember, sometimes the best things in life happen when we open the wrong door at the right time.